Okay.
Hi, Leticia.
Hello.
How are you this morning?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good, good, good. Because I know we're starting in just a couple minutes.
Mhm.
You can go ahead and put up your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to do slides or something.
No, we're good because we're like rolling from one to the next, right? So we should be good.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm going to let them in and just like, as soon as you give me the thumbs up, we'll be good to go.
I'm like trying to, oh, there it goes.
Wait, hold on.
There we go. Okay.
You good now?
Yeah, I'm good. No, I
Okay.
was kind of like in the chat, like, I know I have to press, I thought I was pressing controls, that way I go to the next line, but I kept like entering, I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do.
It's all good. It's all good. So you just let me know when you're ready. I'll admit them in.
We could go ahead and start now. How are you today, by the way?
Good. How are you? It'll be great. You'll be great.
I'm so tired right now.
I'm sure, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Are you ready for me to admit?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I have placed the link for the Nearpod presentation. If you would go ahead and click on that link and join. Good morning, Lizeth. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Lizeth, maybe. I placed the link for the Nearpod. There'll be quite a bit interaction. So if you would go ahead and click on that link. For some, if it doesn't like click right away, you can copy and paste. It'll bring you straight into a Nearpod. There's an activity there for you to complete. If you're not familiar with Nearpod, when you click on that link, it will ask you to place your name. Just go ahead and type your name. You don't have to put anything in like the second little box and then click join session. Once you're inside, it will bring you to a chart. To add to this chart, you could use the text box, the T at the bottom, and then start typing. There's a pencil if you want to draw it instead.
I don't know if I'm clicking on the right link, but when I open it up, it takes me to a Bunsey 2021.
Oh my God, I am so sorry.
It's not to the Nearpod.
Thank you.
No worries. I just wanted to check. I was like, maybe it's my internet. I kept doing it through different browsers, but.
You know what? So while I was waiting to get in, I had to add that link to a session that we did yesterday. I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
No worries. You're fine. Thank you.
No, thank you for telling me. No wonder. I'm like, why is no one joining? Okay, wait. Where'd it go?
And while you do this, I have a quick question. Are we linking to your Google Classroom or to your Nearpod account?
You're actually going to go into the Nearpod presentation.
Perfect. So I know how the kids are getting on.
Yes, you'll participate as a student. That is correct, Kimberly. All right, there is the correct link. There we go. Thank you so much. I don't know who that was that like unmuted themselves to tell me. Oh. So yes, you will participate as a student. And what I'll do is I'll actually, I'll shift my share view so that way you'll see what it looks like from the teacher view if you've never used Nearpod. So right now, my share view is showing from the teacher perspective. You'll notice right now, if you are looking at my shared screen, that you can see everyone's name. The good thing about Nearpod is it does allow you to change that. So in my bottom right-hand corner, I have the option of clicking hide student names. And so that will take student names away. I will say that typically in the, like, whether I'm in the classroom or if you're doing this virtually, I typically don't share my teacher view with my students. I always have up what they would see. So usually I'll have two views going on. Like, the nice thing is that you as a teacher, when you start a Nearpod presentation, you can actually yourself log into that same presentation like 5 different times. So what I do is, you know, we have ViewSonics at my school on the laptop. I will join our Nearpod and have the student view up there. And then for me, I'll either walk around with my phone or with an iPad. And then I'll log into that presentation, but I'm looking at it from the teacher view. So that way my students don't have that view. So I'll have 2 different things going on at the same time. So Penny, welcome to Nearpod. This is your first time. I'll send the link just in case if you just joined. Go ahead and click on the link that I placed in the chat. You will join as a student. So you'll just place your name. So students do not need a Nearpod account. They typically don't have Nearpod accounts. It's just the teacher. So you take your, you know, PowerPoint presentations or your Google slide presentations, and you can bring those into Nearpod and then add these interactive slides along the way. So the one that you're working on right now is called a Draw It slide. Then students, you give them either the code. So if you look at my shared screen, in the top left-hand corner, you'll see like this 5-letter code. You can either have students join that way, or you can give them the link like I did for you. What's nice is, here, I'll even show you, I can even send this link to Google Classroom. So you can set up an assignment so that way students can join that way. You can send it through Microsoft Teams. So you have those options. Am I in? Let me see, Penny, I can tell if you're in. Let's see, Penny. Yep, Penny, you're in. You are definitely in. If you are working with one device, I would say stay on the Nearpod that you're working on. And occasionally I'll say like, come back to my shared screen, and I might point out something that way. But so that way you don't have your attention going like a lot of places, then I would say for the most part, stay on your Nearpod and I'll like talk you through some things. So on this Draw It slide, for those of you that are new to Nearpod, is there a way to split screen? Yes, you could definitely do that. So if you are on one device, you know, you could, you know, take your corner, split it in half, unless you have like, there is an extension that you could get. And then I could even do that, where I have it on both ends. And there you can see that you know, if you wanted to do that for yourself, then you could do that as well. That works. So on this Draw It slide, your tools are at the bottom left-hand corner. You have a marker that you could use to write. You have a highlighter. You have a text box. You can even bring in an image, and then you have an eraser. So you can use those things. And so you'll notice that when you got right into this Nearpod, a trick that I've learned over the years is that my first slide, when students first go into Nearpod, I always have some type of activity for them to do. So that way it's just not the title slide and they're all like waiting around. This is a good opportunity, you know, to check in with students, like SEL, you know, you can use, and we'll go through that where you'll see like the different types of slides that Nearpod has that like you can then potentially use for when they first log in, because it gives you a time to like answer questions, let students get settled in, whatever that is. And so it's just an opportunity to like get them kind of started, kind of, you know, get them involved, but being intentional with it while everyone is still getting settled in. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start just because, or we're gonna go ahead and move forward. So it's okay if you didn't finish this first slide. Again, it was just to get everyone settled, everyone make sure that they're logged in. And I'll keep my split screen so that way you can see both views. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. So if you didn't finish, it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move it, so don't worry. All right, so we're here to talk about how we can go from passive to active learning with Nearpod. Before we go any further, there is a way for you to take notes. So you'll notice on your Nearpod, there is a little paper with a pencil icon in the top right-hand corner. If you click that, you have 3 options, either to send this to your email, to send this to your Google Drive, or to send it to your OneDrive. Once you choose, so usually I choose my Google Drive, and I also do this with students. So I teach this, I teach TK for 5th grade. I do this mostly with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and I'm intentional on how I show them to do this. The first time around, I may say, so you'll notice that once you choose where you want this slide to go, then a space opens up for you to start taking notes. What happens is at the conclusion, once I end this Nearpod, you will get an editable PDF that goes to your email, your Drive, or your OneNote, and it will have all the slides that we covered. So let's say I have 30 slides on here, but we only get through 15. Only those 15 are going to show up on that editable PDF. All your notes that you were taking on the side will also show up on that editable PDF. Although links are active, even if we have a collaborative board, you'll be able to see other people's responses, and all your responses that you did on that slide will also show up. What's nice is how I use it in the classroom with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Like the first time around that I show them, I'm very intentional about like, today I want you to really like to focus in and take notes on, how many adjectives that I use, whatever that may be that your intention is, that's what I tell my students to focus on. And then what happens is, because we use Google Classroom with our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, I will set this up as an assignment. So that's where they go. They go to Google Classroom and click on that Nearpod, and then they're there. At the conclusion of our lesson, and once I ended, on that assignment, I tell them, I want you to go ahead and get your editable PDF that you sent to your Google Drive from what we just did on our Nearpod. I want you to submit that as your assignment. That way I can go in and look at their notes. So it's just an accountability thing. It's a great way to practice, again, taking notes, making sure that students are checked in, that their, comprehension skills, all those things are there. The other great thing about that is that now students have their own copy and they can use that as a resource. So if we're focused on a particular thing and they need to like study for something, or, like I said, they have a resource now for whatever that's connected to that topic, they can always go back and take a look at that, look at their notes and look at the things that we covered. So that's just another great way, again, for moving from passive to active by using Nearpod. If at any point through this you have questions, please go ahead, either unmute yourselves or put it in the chat, and I will get to those definitely. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward. You've been hearing me talk. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Leticia Citizen. I'm an I4 coach at Hawthorne School in Beverly Hills Unified School District. I just concluded my 21st year as an educator, my 3rd year as a coach. Prior to that, I taught, thanks for the heart. Prior to that, I taught 2 years kindergarten. I taught 1st grade for 7 years, and I taught 5th grade for 9 years. I should remember my numbers. I taught in Pasadena for 16 years, Arcadia for 2, and this is my 3rd year. I'm finishing up in Beverly Hills. You can see that I'm also an ambassador and a trainer for many of the EdTech platforms that I think do a phenomenal job of allowing our students to be engaged, to share their voice in a variety of ways. And then also they really listen to teacher and student feedback when it comes to how to enhance their platform. You can always connect with me on Twitter, reach to me on email, whatever that is. I love like sharing and chatting and talking and learning from you as well. So now that you heard a little bit about me, I always love to know who's in this space. So before I open up this collaborative board for you, if you are looking at my shared screen, on the left-hand side is my teacher view. You'll notice that a little like information popped up to say like, hey, this is the collaborative board. Would you like to moderate this? Now, when I first introduced this to students in the first couple of times, I do say yes. And then, you know, again, this is practicing digital citizenship, making sure that students are staying focused, answering how they're supposed to. They're not having a brain fart, because we know we have those every once in a while. So I can go ahead and moderate it. So for now, I'll go ahead just so that way you can see what that looks like. So I said, yes, I'm gonna moderate it. But after a while with students, I'll take that moderation off. But there's still a way to go ahead and still moderate it in a way, and I'll show you what that looks like. So go ahead in this space. I want you to share your name, your grade, and your location. Now here's something I want to point out. You'll type in that bottom little white rectangle. Do not press enter until you are ready, like you finish typing. Because if you press enter, it's not going to go to the next line. You just have to get it all out in that one time and then go ahead and press enter. You'll notice in this space, not only can students type, but they can also upload images. So again, these are things that you want to teach the students and say, like for this one, I only want to see text. Or, hey, if you can find an image that goes along with what you're stating, you can do that as well. But again, just demonstrating and modeling for our students, you know, and showing them that there's a purpose for each thing that we do in this space is really helpful. So go ahead and share who's in this space. And I'll show you what it looks like as like people type and it shows up. Or if you prefer to put it in the chat. Ah, okay. I was gonna say, I know people are typing, but I have like a delay. All right, so if you are looking at my shared screen, remember on the left-hand side is the teacher view, you'll notice that in this first little box, I have notifications. So it's telling me, hey, you've got some people who are responding. On my view, I can go ahead and click that, and you'll notice that at the bottom, it shows me all the little cards. So I could go through and, you know, if they're all great, then I click a check mark. You'll notice that then on your screen, you should start to see responses. One thing I want to point out is that on the student view, those responses have no names attached to them. So Nearpod is really big on setting up, say, hey, Molly included a picture, awesome. You'll notice that Nearpod is really big on really keeping students' responses anonymously or anonymous, because they're all about like allowing students to really share in a space without ridicule, without having to worry about like, did I spell this correctly? Did I do this right? Students pointing out and making fun of them or anything like that. So we have those conversations about like, you don't need to say, hey, this is mine, or any, you know, those kinds of things. The other thing I wanted to point out is as I'm moderating, let's say that, you know, Rochelle's, I'm like, oh no, she, you know, didn't model very well. So I'll put an X on hers. What will happen too is that, you know, I could say like, hey, Rochelle, I need you to do that again because, you know, there were some things in there that were kind of not appropriate. I need you to try again. The good thing is that then it stays in my area, so that way I can still look at it. So on my end and my reports, it will still show me what that student did, and then we can have that conversation too later. But I'll give her a chance to, or give that student a chance to go back and do it again. Now let's say that I did not moderate this and I just let students have free range on how they're going to respond. If you're looking at my teacher view, you'll notice that one, the names are attached for me on my end. Two, that if I hover over, you know, that Post-it, there's a little trash can there. So I can go ahead and take it away right away. And you'll see that even on your end, it'll say this card was deleted. Now on my view, while that card is deleted, when I go into my reports, I can pull that card up again, because let's say that Jenny, you know, time and time again, I have to keep reminding Jenny, hey, I need you, you know, this is digital citizenship. You're not being very responsible in how you're responding. But Jenny keeps doing it because, you know, Jenny's just having that moment. Well, I can have this now in my reports. I can bring those up. And when I'm meeting with her one-on-one and meeting with her parents, and maybe even bringing in the admin and say like, hey, what can we do so that way you make better choices next time? I have that documentation. Or the other good thing is if I accidentally deleted it, I can restore it and then it appears again. So, you know, Nearpod has all these things in place that help, you know, we really want to practice with students and help them through, you know, making those safe, responsible, and respectful choices as a digital citizen, but still being able to, you know, navigate these spaces and add and contribute as they see fit. The other thing that some of you have found, the hearts, right? So this is where it differs from Padlet, right? On Padlet, you can make comments. On a collaborative slide, you can't. You can only heart it. So I set that stage before with students, where I'll say, you know, I only want you to place a heart on 3 of your peers' responses who maybe shared a similar thought as you. Or I might say, I want you to place a heart on 3 of your classmates who shared an opposing view to what you shared. So being very intentional about why you want a student to heart someone. I set that stage right away before they just start going all willy-nilly. And other times I might just say, put a heart next to the one that like really tugs at your heartstrings, no limit. But I really do that, especially for our littles, because, you know, they'll start to, they go into that social media mind mode of like mine. And I'm like, no, we're not doing any of that. So I set that stage and we have that conversation when I introduce these the first couple of times. And you have to do it a couple of times, especially with the littles. All right, so you see that we got people from all over, Corona, Temecula, Chino, thank you all. I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so just to check in, I want to see your experience with Nearpod. Now, I know I had one, I think Penny said this was her first time, so I know this is Penny's first time. But for the rest of you, I would love to know, what is your experience with Nearpod? Do you use it all the time? You've used it a few times. Have you heard of Nearpod but haven't used it? Or you're like, near what? No, I've never heard of this thing. So you'll notice on my teacher view that right away, you know, the numbers start to populate. I can see responses right away. Oh, looks like the majority of you have heard of it, but never used it. All right, and one cool thing about, or one of the cool things that I love about Nearpod is you'll notice if you're looking at my shared screen that on the teacher view, I can share out the results. And so just like the majority of you have responded. So I'm gonna go ahead and share that out so that way you can see what it looks like on your view. So when I click share on your student screen, you'll see the results as a class. Okay, and again, remember, Nearpod is really big about like not attaching student names for others to see. So you'll see what we chose collaboratively as a class, collectively as a class, not collaboratively, collectively as a class. Then below that, you'll see only your responses. Okay, This is a great opportunity to have like those math talks with students, say, what do you notice? What statements can we make about what our class did collectively? And students might point out, oh, it looks like, I've heard of Nearpod, but having used it is the majority for the class. And then you can ask, well, how do you know? And students will point out, well, I look at the pie graph and I notice that the color green, and then it's attached to the green for those words. And then there's numbers that are there, right? So you can have those conversations with students in that moment if you wanted to, just so that way you can get in that math talk. So I just wanted to show you a way that Nearpod still allows us to share our responses, but again, it still protects each student's choice without like attaching their names to it. All right, so the majority of you have heard of it, but haven't used it, followed by you've used Nearpod a few times. We've got a couple of newbies in here, and then we have someone who uses Nearpod all the time. So welcome, all of you. All right, so let's jump in. The first thing that we're gonna look at is voice and choice. How can we do this with Nearpod? So here is an infographic that I love to use when I am teaching students, as well as teaching or working with teachers. Why voice and choice matters. Go ahead and take a look at that. You'll notice that on the left-hand side, there's learner choice. On the right-hand side, there's a learner voice. They've shared like some 4 different ways that you can do this overall. And now we're going to see how does this connect to Nearpod. So how do you do voice and choice with Nearpod? Well, you've got a couple of different slides. The ones that I love to use a lot are the drawing slide, which you had experience with that when we first started. That's because students can draw, they can type, they can upload images. Then next we looked at the collaborative slide, where you can include images and text. And then we have the poll slide and the open-ended slide. In the poll slide, you can vote to determine lesson direction, and I'll show you how I do that a lot in the classroom. And then lastly, one that you haven't had experience with yet, but you will have an opportunity soon, is the open-ended slide. And students have choice whether they want to respond with text or with audio. And this was a new addition, I believe, last year, where students can now record their responses, which has been really cool for a lot of our students. So what does that look like? So here we go. Now, when it comes to having students use the poll slide to determine and vote where we're gonna go with the direction of our lesson, this is where, as the teacher, I have to do some planning ahead of time, okay? So I'm giving you a choice right now, so just pretend like if I'm doing this with the student, but I might actually have like very specific topics, maybe connected to social studies or math or whatever that is. But for the sake of what we're doing right now, what do you want to experience next? A collaborative slide, an open-ended slide, or a drawing slide? So while you're voting, I'll go ahead and explain how this works. I, as a teacher, I'm setting up this poll slide. So let's say I'm working on math and maybe we're learning about fractions. And maybe I might say, all right, do we want to focus first on adding fractions with denominators the same, adding fractions with different denominators, or subtracting fractions with same denominators or with different denominators, right? So for me, that means that I have to set up those slides ahead of time that I want us to practice. So what happens is, if you're looking at my teacher view, at the bottom in the middle, I think they kind of call it the hopper, where it shows me all my slides that I have in this presentation. So what I'm going to do is those 4 slides that I want students to choose, or those 4 topics that I want them to choose, and they're going to tell me which ones we're going to do next. What this hopper allows me to do is, let's say that they choose one, but it's not the next one. Those 4 slides, those 4 next slides after this poll, are going to be connected to what they voted for. But you'll see right here, I have the collaborative slide, the open-ended slide, and the draw-it slide. Now, if I go back to our results, it looks like most of you want to, or majority of you want to do the collaborative slide. So what I would do then is come here, and actually my collaborative slide is next, but let's say it was the third one. What I can do is I can actually click on that slide that I really want that the students voted on and go ahead and say share out. And now that's going to be our next slide. So the cool thing about this hopper is that it will allow me to, like, even if we're running through this presentation and I see, you know what, my students got most of this, I don't need to go through the rest of the slides. I can then hop ahead and share out the next slide if I wanted to. Okay. So using this poll slide, even the students are like, how are you going to know what slide to put out next if we're voting? And I'm like, watch the magic. You know, and I don't show them that part. They just think like, oh, she's some magician. She already knew our answers. And I'm like, yeah, okay, friends. So I would go ahead, because the majority said collaborative slide, I would go ahead and share out that collaborative slide. And there it is for you. Is there a breakout that will show us how to create the slides? I know what you mean, a breakout. Like I can show you that, Kimberly, towards the end. Okay. So again, for this one, I'm going to go ahead and say, no, I'm not going to another class or a session. I don't know if in this conference, if it is, but I will keep watch on time and I can show you that, what it looks like in Google Camp. Yeah, I don't know about in Google Camp. So on this slide, and you don't have to do it right now, just for the sake of time, especially because I know that some of you want to know how to like do this. So then I would share out that slide and then students would go ahead and respond on that slide, right? Now, then I would go back to our poll slide and say, all right, friends, so then the next one is that you chose an open-ended slide. Again, I would come back to this hopper, go to the open-ended slide, and then share that slide out. And then students would go ahead and answer on that one, right? Like they would go ahead and whatever slides are attached to that or that topic, then that's what we're going to complete next. You'll notice this is the slide where they can do text and where they can do audio. Okay. And then lastly, I would go back to the poll, depending on how many responses I had, our choices, and then I would see, oh, Jawed slide was last. So then I would come back to my hopper, come over to the Jawed slide, and then share that out as well. Okay, so that's where allowing the students to vote on a poll, make choice, and where we're going in our lesson, and then me knowing ahead of time, having those slides planned, and then being able to just share them out freely because I have this choice down here in Nearpod where I can just go ahead and share out these different slides. The next one is differentiated instruction and how we can do that on Nearpod. So maybe speaking to the choir, but just as a reminder, differentiated instruction, I love to use this infographic from the Teach staff. It's all about learning, improving learning outcomes, increasing engagement, inspire love of learning, increase self-awareness. And so there are 3 different ways that I do this with using Nearpod, creating learning paths, using Hyperdocs, and creating choice boards. And so what does that look like? So I want to share with you some examples of that. The first one is with learning paths. So the way I set this up is using a Google slide, and I add that, and I'll show you how I could do that, where I create a Google slide. On my Google slide, you know, I've hyperlinked these shapes for the students, and these shapes are connected to a Nearpod lesson, but that Nearpod lesson is set up as student-paced. So there's 2 different ways that you can set up a Nearpod lesson. You can do live lesson, which is what we're doing right now. I'm controlling the slides and yours move on your end. Or student pace, which means you would still log in, but you would control the slides and you would do it at your own pace. But all the data, all the like slides that you complete, all that data still comes into my reports. When I'm doing learning paths, that's what I'm doing. So basically I might take the same Nearpod lesson, and for my students who I know like have like the concepts and they've basically mastered it, but I want them to demonstrate it for me, I'm gonna go ahead and edit that same lesson, but I'm gonna make it to fit their needs. And then my students who need a little more practice, I'm gonna go ahead and like adjust that lesson. So that way it gives them a little more practice on it, but they're both doing and answering the, demonstrating that same standard, but just in their own needs. So what does that look like? So when students, I would share this slide with them. They would go ahead and click on it. It's going to take them to that lesson. And a lot of times I do this where students are working together. So I'll tell them, put both of your names there. So that way I know that you work together. They're going to join that lesson and they're working on ordering and grouping. And they're going to go through that lesson all on their own, controlling it. For the other students, right, because I've already set this up and said like student 2 and 7, or I might put their names there. They're going to click on their lesson, make sure that they put both of their names there, working together, join the lesson, and they're going to work on ordering and grouping part B. And so both groups are doing this, or all groups are doing this in their pairs, going through this lesson, but they're completing it. They're on their own learning path to complete this together. So that's how I set that up for learning paths. With Hyperdocs, it's the same idea where, well, I would ask you, why would you use Hyperdocs? Student paced, student-centered, it's transformative, engaging, meets the four C's, and it's interactive. So what that looks like is I'm going to do a Nearpod again. I'll go through this one. That's just information. Here we go. So here's a Nearpod that I've set up as a Hyperdoc. Students would join it. So they're doing it all on their own pace. So they're controlling it. They're all doing the same Hyperdoc. And it's walking them through the process. So what's nice about this is, they're going to annotate. So I bring in that image using the draw with slide, and they're going to annotate on top of that drawing slide. Then they're going to explore. This is going to take them to 2 different articles. So it's done all right here in Nearpod where they're responding, but I'm setting it up ahead of time. Then they're going to tell me what are some themes that were evident in that article that they read. And it's just going to walk them through. There's a space for them to go ahead and explain and engage and apply. They're going to bring in some images. And it's just walking them through. So everything is just done straight here on Nearpod. Here's another example. And then for choice boards. Now choice boards, how I like to set them up, I like to use Buncee. You could use Google Slides. You could use a doc, whatever that is. What I do is ahead of time, like for science, I went into, so Nearpod has a library, and I'll show you that in a minute. Nearpod has a library of tons of lessons that are already completed. I go through those lessons, I find the ones that I want, and what I'm gonna do is set those lessons, so these 6, you can't see me, a solid investigation, all 6 of these, I set them at student pace. I took that code and I placed it here on this doc for students. And then I'm going to give them about 2 weeks to complete this. So during their time or their science time or whatever time that we set aside, I'm like, okay, go ahead and go to your choice board, your science choice board, choose whichever activity you're going to work on. And they're going to do it at their own pace. If they don't finish it that day, they can come back the next day and finish it, but they've got 2 weeks to complete all 6 activities. They can choose to work together or not, but what I've done on my end is I've set those lessons up in student pace, got the codes, placed them here, and that code works for every student who plugged that in. So that's another way that you can then use Nearpod to make it interactive. So I'm going to go ahead and ask, are there any questions but I know that Kimberly, and I saw Lisa nod her head too when Kimberly was asking about like how to set up this Nearpod, right? Go ahead, if you have other questions, put them here on this board. In the meantime, what I'll do is show you ways that you can create an Nearpod, okay? And I'm gonna just share my full screen. So go ahead and answer or put questions if you have them or put them in the chat. But in the meantime, I'll show you. So there are, how do I say this? There are 2 ways that I create on Nearpod, okay? The first one, so this is my account. And if you are new to Nearpod and you haven't signed up for an account, I can give you a code that gives you like, what is it, gold status or silver status, whatever, for like 3 months. I can give that to you so you can like test it out. But the first thing I want to point out is that Nearpod has a library where there are thousands of lessons. You can search for those lessons by topic. So I could come here, maybe I'm, just looking for lessons. You can search by state standards. You can search by subject, and you can search by grade level. Okay. So let's say that I want this 3rd grade one on reviewing equivalent fractions. Okay, that's what it said. There it is, reviewing equivalent fractions. I can go ahead and preview it first, right? To make sure, is this what I want? Okay. The cool thing is that once I add this lesson to my library and it becomes mine, I can manipulate it as I want. I can edit that lesson. Okay. So even if it doesn't have like all the things that I want, but it has the majority of them. And as I'm looking through, I'm like, oh my God, but I can add this here and you can do that. So I can go through, yep, I've decided, yep, this is the lesson that I want. You'll notice that it says add to my lessons. I'm going to say add to my lessons, and now it's going to be in my library. Okay. So no, join me, but here, I'll go here so you can see. So I come back to my library and you'll see it's right here. Okay. So again, I went to Nearpod's library, looked at all their thousands of lessons, and then to use it, I have to add it to my library. Here's the other thing I want to point out. Once it's in your library, it's yours. So now I can do what I want to. Now, if you're going to edit that main lesson, my tip to teachers is always go ahead and duplicate it. So that way you maintain the original, and then you can do whatever you want to the new ones. So to duplicate it, you'll notice if I hover over it, there's 3 dots. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Okay. And when I do that, it's like figuring itself out. What it does is it immediately opens up into the editing format. Okay. So it shows me all the slides that are part of this lesson. Now, as the owner of this, now I can go through, I can click on one and you notice I can delete it. I can delete that slide. Maybe I don't want that one there, okay? Maybe the rest of it, I'm like, okay, but I want to take out the credit and sources. All right, delete that one. Maybe I'll come up here. Sometimes it has like teacher notes. Maybe I'll take that out. But let's say I wanted to add something. So maybe I wanted to add a slide between slide 1 and 2. What I'm going to do is click between slide 1 and slide 2. Click on where it says add new. And now I've got 2 options. So Nearpod has like divided it up for us. You can add content, which means students are going to consume information, right? And I have all these options. So these are already built into Nearpod. They've got video, they've got slides, vocabulary connects to it. They got Nearpod 3D. They've got VR field trips, simulations, graphing calculator, all these different choices. I can even, maybe I want to still bring in a Padlet. Maybe I still want to bring in a Jamboard. I can bring in any web content by clicking on web content and then putting that URL right here. And it brings it here into the space. Okay, so that's the first thing that I can add. I can add content. Or Maybe I want students to participate in an activity where they're gonna have to respond. And again, this is all built in from Nearpod. So they've got like this little, it's gamification. It's kind of similar to Kahoot, but I find that students love it a lot better. A time to climb. They've got open, so you've seen this, the open-ended question. They've got matching pairs. And these are things that you can even place at the beginning. Remember that first slide? Never let your first slide be your title slide. Let it be an activity for students. So you've got open-ended, matching pairs. You can do a quick quiz. You can even bring in Flipgrid, a draw with it, a collaborative slide. So you've got these different activity slides that you bring in. And the cool thing is, so let's see, the collaborative slide, I can set it up. I can put in my topic and my description and choose what that layout looks like. Or for activities, open-ended questions. What Nearpod is starting to do is, while you can set up your own, they're starting, maybe not on this slide, but there's a slide that they're starting to generate some predetermined ones that you can bring in, or you can just start from scratch. So you have all these options to bring in, so that you can manipulate that lesson how you see fit. Once you're finished, right, go ahead and make sure that if you want to rename it, you can do that as well. But then you just go ahead and save and exit. And now it's going to resave it for you. So now you've got two. You also notice that you can set up folders. So I've started to organize mine, because that's just where my mind is. It makes my heart happy if it's organized. And so let's say that even with that one lesson, remember I talked about creating learning paths, right? We want that differentiation for our student. You can duplicate this lesson as many times as you want and then change those. And then you can label them accordingly. So that's one way that you can create. Take what's already here, don't reinvent the wheel, and make it fit you and your students' needs. Now, let's say you wanted to create from scratch. Then in the top right-hand corner, there's a create. You see I've got some options. They even have video now. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Edpuzzle, where you can take your own videos or YouTube videos, and then you add these questions along the way. Nearpod has that now as well, where you can again, they have videos, or you can upload your own or bring in some from Vimeo or YouTube or whatever, and then you can add open-ended questions and multiple choice questions along the way. It stops and then they have to answer before they can move on. But let's say I wanted to create my own lesson from scratch. Same thing, it's gonna bring me into my editing view. It's all empty. This is how, if you have PowerPoint presentations, then you would go ahead and upload them this way. You would select your file. So you can upload, images, PowerPoints, PDFs. Let's see if I have any. So if I wanted to bring in the screenshot, I don't know what that is, then it will go ahead and bring it in on its side. Oh, it's 15% off. Shows I've been shopping. So don't tell my husband. So you can bring in images, you can bring in those PowerPoints. When you bring in your PowerPoint, it will separate each slide as its own. And then again, you can still add in, a content slide or an activity for the students, and you can add those along the way. The other way that for me, can you use, I was just gonna tell you, Jenny, you can bring in your Google Slides the same way, or what my workflow works better is if I already have my Google slide decks. Let me just take an old one. Mess up anything. I'll just choose one. Let's say that I want to take this slide deck. Let me make a copy. All right. So I have this slide deck, okay? Now, yes, I can easily upload it the same way into Nearpod over here, right? Or you can have an add-on. So Nearpod has an add-on in Google Slides that once you add it, I'm going to say go ahead and open up Nearpod. If you're not logged in, it's going to tell you to log into your Nearpod account. But what it does is now bring all those interactive slides right here into my Google Slides. Okay, so I don't have to, and this is what works better for me because I have a lot of slide decks that I've already built and then I'm like now changing to Nearpodize them. Then I just do it from my Google Slides. So what I'll do now is, let's say I wanted an interactive slide between slide 2 and 3. I, click to signal that's where it is. And maybe I want to add in a Nearpod 3D. So that same editing kind of thing is going to come here. I can go through, maybe we're talking about the cardiovascular system, click done. It's going to do what it does. And it's going to actually bring that here. Okay. Let's say that I already had, so now you can see, right? Let's say I wanted to change this into a draw it slide. You'll notice, 1 minute. Okay. So you'll notice that I can convert to draw it. It will then change this slide into a draw it slide. So everything is built there. Okay. We have 1 minute. Let me go back. I think, have you tried using the Nearpod plus Zoom feature? I have not tried that one yet because we have Zoom in my district already. So I haven't found a need to use it. So I'm not too familiar in how that actually works. Is it free? Nearpod is a freemium, meaning that you have your basic level that gives you so much memory that you can do. And then you can move up. There's different prices for that. They're always working with teachers. Like I said, I have a code that I can give you for the gold or that puts you higher or whatever for a couple of months, and then it'll knock you down. But whatever you have in your library, you keep. I always suggest that if you do have a lot of Google Slide decks, that do them from keep those in your Google Slides and build a Nearpod there. So that way, if you do only have minimum, minimum memory, that you still have your original slide deck. And the good thing is you still have all your reports, all that data from there. Yes, please send code. Can younger students work with these Nearpod slides? Yes, I use Nearpod with my TK through 5th grade students. Yep. And it's just what I do for my littles is I just start off with 1 slide, or I might start off with 2 slides. So that's the thing. Nearpod at first used to be where you had to use a minimum of 3 slides. Now you can just do 1 slide. All right. So first thing is, here's the code. Okay. That gets you gold edition. That's the code. And I want to give you, hold on, I'll put it back. Don't worry. I want to give you the code so that way you can access this Nearpod deck and student pays, because there's a lot more resources in there for you to access. So let me get that for you. This one, student piece. And I'll actually show you what that looks like. So here I am. I went to that presentation. I clicked student pace, just so you know. I already have some codes there, but I'm just going to launch a new one. The nice thing is that you can set up a code to last anywhere from 1 day to 365 days. So if you only want a lesson to last for 2 weeks, remember those science lessons that I only say you have 2 weeks to finish them. I set them so that way they only last for 2 weeks. Once that 2 weeks is done, then that code goes away and they can't access it anymore. Here's the link. So here's the link for the student pace. I will also put that in the sked so that way you have access to it. And I wanted to remind you too that for the live pace, what we did, that code lasts for 14 days. So let's say we didn't finish today with this lesson. If we were meeting tomorrow, I would use that same link. You would use that same link. I would use that same code, and it will put us right where we left off. So that's the cool thing about the live. Again, only 14 days, but student pays can last anywhere from a day to an entire year. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you want to meet one-on-one and we can hop on a Zoom, we could do that as well. Here's my info. I love sharing about this stuff. So definitely reach out if you have any questions. You're so welcome. But yes, the link that I just put in there, you can access this entire presentation. There was more things there. There are some planning things that I created, if you wanted to do a Hyperdoc or a learning path. So I kind of walk you through those things. But I hope it was helpful. Sorry that I went over. I don't want the moderator to kill me. Sorry, June.
You're perfectly fine. It's all good. Thank you for the session. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.